So tonight I have to feed my starter because tomorrow I have plans to bake. So this is Cinderella coming out of the fridge, and she is quite hungry living in the fridge. So I'm going to take some of this out of here and I'm going to put it in a clean jar and feed this, and then this is going to go back in the fridge. It's a good idea to know how much you need to feed. So tomorrow I need at least 100 grams of starter. So what I need to have is at least 100 grams in this jar. I don't really have to have leftover, but if I do, I just put it back in this jar. So I need to at least have 25 grams of this, and then I would double that feeding with 50 grams of flour and 50 grams of water, and that would leave me with 125 grams of starter to be able to use to bake with tomorrow. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to take 25 grams of this cold inactive starter, put it in the jar here with our scale zeroed out. There we go, 25. Okay, so next, the flour that you choose to feed your starter with, it can be rye, it can be wheat, it can be regular all-purpose, it can be bread flour. You can use just about any flour you want to feed your starter. I use einkorn. It's just the flour that I like to use. It's the flour I started with when I made my starter. A higher protein content in your flour is better for your starter because then it will be stronger. So einkorn has a high protein content like rye, but I don't like the flavor of rye so much, so I use einkorn. Okay, so zero out your scale. Move this so you can see. And we're just going to put 50 grams of flour. Now I take tap water that I've microwaved just a little bit just to warm it up. And we want, it does not have to be, just a side note, I'm going to do 50 grams of water, but the least amount of water that you use to get a thicker starter, it's called a stiff starter if it has less water. And it also usually makes it a little less sour. So if you're more on the mild flavor, which I am, I like mild or sourdough, I don't like it super sour, then a stiff starter is better for that. Okay, zero out your scale. And I went way over because I was not thinking. So now I'm at 80. So we're gonna have to add more flour. I am super tired tonight and I am just not able to make it. Okay, so it's fine. We're just gonna add more flour because I need it to be a little thicker. It's not a big deal. The more you feed your starter, the longer it's going to take to peak, which in this case is going to be totally fine. I don't need it to peak until morning, so it's not a big deal. If you feed it a 1-1-1 ratio, which means equal parts starter, flour, water, it's going to peak the fastest, but it's also going to fall the fastest. And if you feed it a high ratio feeding, like a 1-5-5, for instance, which would be 1 part starter, 5 parts flour, 5 parts water, that is going to take it longer to rise, but it will hold the rise longer as well. So if you need it to stay at peak longer, a higher ratio feeding is the best. However, you do have to take into account that it will take longer to rise. All right, so now we're going to stir it all in. And again, most of the time, right now I'm actually measuring it out just because I know I need a specific amount of starter, but you can totally eyeball feeding your starter and it will not hurt it. So don't worry so much about it. It is not a newborn baby. We don't have to be super ultra delicate with it. Once it's established, you really virtually can't kill your starter unless you severely neglect it. You leave it on the counter and it grows mold. That kind of stuff, yeah, your starter is probably a goner. I wouldn't save it. But you can throw this thing in the fridge and then leave it for months. And chances are, it may take a little bit of time to wake it back up, but it's fine. This is actually a little bit thinner than I like, but it'll be okay. I like my starter pretty thick. This is more pancake consistency. I like it thicker than that. I like it to where you lift it up and it like won't come off. So a super stiff starter is usually what I like the best. But this is okay too. You just don't want it super runny. If it's super runny, it's sloppy for one. And generally, if it's super runny, it's going to eat it really fast, and then it's going to come back and it's going to be real acidic, and it's going to be hungry again. So the more flour, the better. Okay, I'm not going to tighten this lid completely because there will be some gases that build up in here, but I do twist it on there a little bit. I am going to put it on my seedling mat in the morning. It will have risen. So we're going to move our band down to the mark that it's at right now. It's been sitting in the fridge for a few days. It generally means it's a little sluggish, so it just may give me a double, and that's it. But that's it. That's all you have to do. It's super easy to do. You just pick the ratio you want. I measure out when I'm specifically going to bake something, so I make sure I make enough starter. But other than that, that's how you maintain your starter. You just give it some food and water here and there, and it's fine.